India's Modi arrives in Ukraine for talks with Zelensky weeks after Putin meeting. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi attends the meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Kiev, Ukraine, August 23, 2024. CNN, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Kiev on Friday for talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky that will be keenly watching it in Russia as it asserts on its naval grinds on. Modi's visit, the first by the Indian leader since Ukrainian independence, comes just weeks after he traveled to Moscow in a symbolic first overseas trip of his new term as leader, where he held talks with President Vladimir Putin that would criticized by Kiev. After talks concluded, India's Minister of External Affairs S. Jai Shankar stressed that India is committed to helping end the war. We are very, very keen that this conflict should come to the end, Jai Shankar said at a press briefing. Despite repeatedly called for the ceasefire and the peace in Ukraine, New Delhi has refrained from condemning Russia's invasion as it seeks to maintain relations with Moscow, a major supplier of its arms and a long-standing partner. It sees as key to balancing its strained relationship with China. India has also acted as the economic lifeline for Russia, ramping up purchases of its crude oil after countries around the world slapped sanctions on Moscow, isolating it economically. India overtook China as the world's biggest importer of Russian oil last month, according to Reuters, citing data from the trade and industry sources. Jai Shankar defended India's purchasing of oil from Russia, saying it was not indicative of the wider political posture. India is the big oil consumer. It is big oil importer because we do not have oil. It's not like there is a political strategy to buy oil. There is a oil strategy to buy oil. There is a market strategy to buy oil, Jai Shankar said. Ukraine, throughout the world, has sought to convene countries that maintain close relationship with Russia, such as India and China, to push Putin towards the Kiev's terms for peace. Zelensky hailed Modi's visit as historic and symbolic, thanking India for its support of our sovereignty and territorial integrity over 2.5 years of war. The Indian leader's arrival in Kiev a day ahead of Ukraine's Independence Day follows his two-day trip to Poland, where he elaborated India's ties with a NATO member, referencing conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East during the press conference in Warsaw. Modi reiterated India's stance that no problem can be solved on the battlefield. We support dialogue and diplomacy for the early restoration of peace and stability. For this, India, along with its friendly countries, is ready to provide all possible support, Modi said Thursday alongside Polish counterpart Donald Tusk. Tusk praised Modi's intention to help end the war in Ukraine in a quick, peaceful, and fair manner. Zelensky welcomes Modi outside the presidential palace in Kiev. Landmark visit. The Modi's visit to Ukraine also comes at a key inflection point to the 2.5-year war, as Ukrainian forces earlier this month launched the unprecedented offensive into Russian territory that Moscow is scrambling to counter. Zelensky and Kiev officials are urgently working to expand the global backing for their peace formula, which is predicated on the withdrawal of Russian troops from their land. The upcoming U.S. presidential election has raised concerns that crucial American backing could be cut if Republican candidate Donald Trump, who has been critical of NATO and the U.S. support for Kiev, is elected. Ukraine throughout the world has sought to convince countries that maintain close relationship with Russia, such as India and China, to push Putin towards the Kiev's terms for peace. But while India attended the Kiev-backed International Peace Summit in Switzerland in June, it stopped short of endorsing the gathering's communique, saying that resolution requires the sincere and practical engagement between the two parties to the conflict. During his visit to Ukraine, Modi is expected to discuss with Zelensky what India's foreign minister described as the entire gamut of bilateral relations, including trade, infrastructure, and defense. This landmark visit, of course, takes place against the backdrop of the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, which will also form part of discussions. The ministry's secretary for the West, Tanmaya Lal, said Monday. The Ukrainian presidential office said Modi and Zelensky would discuss issues of bilateral and multilateral cooperation, and that document would be signed later. Jaishankar confirmed that leaders signed 4 agreements covering community development project, drug control standard, culture exchange, and agriculture. Officials from both countries have in recent months expressed interest in restoring trade, which has dropped during the war, according to the annual data from Ukraine. Modi and Zelensky have met twice on the sidelines of G7 summits since the start of the war, including in June in Italy. Putin bids farewell to Modi following a meeting at the Kremlin in Moscow, Russia, July 9, 2024. Zelensky last month condemned Modi's meeting with Putin, which coincided with the Russian assault on several Ukrainian cities and the deadly strike on the children's hospital. Then the Ukrainian leader described Modi's rapport with Putin as the huge disappointment and a devastating blow to peace effort to see the leader of the world's largest democracy hug the world's most bloody criminal in Moscow on such a day. Modi did not directly address the strikes at the time, but he made what appeared to be some of his most critical comments to date on the war, saying any person who believes in the humanity is troubled when there is a death, especially when innocent children die. He also called it for the path to peace through dialogue. CNN's Aishwarya S. Lier, Isha Mitra, and Alex Stenberg contributed to this report.